Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this week's Monday Zen and Zazen class. Today I will talk about Sawaki Roshi's quotes from To You. But before that, let's sit together for 30 minutes. Okay, thank you for joining. Probably when you enter this Zoom room, you are muted and your camera is off. And of course, you're very welcome to turn the camera on so that we can see your face. But it would be nice if you keep yourself muted until the Q&A session. It happens quite often that during Zazen we hear some noise from somewhere, and it can be easily avoided if you just keep yourself muted. Anyway, today I talk about Sawaki's quotes from this book to you. Today I'm on page 58. And the first quote goes like this: "Only Buddha, together with Buddha, can discuss the buddha-dharma. Buddha and an ordinary person cannot. That's why it says in the Lotus Sutra, only a Buddha together with a Buddha can penetrate it. In the same way, the mind shared by Buddha and Buddha is only realized by sitting upright, facing the wall. Only Buddha together with Buddha, as mentioned here, originally it's a quote from the Lotus Sutra. And Dogen Zenji wrote a whole chapter about this expression in the Shobogenzo. The Japanese expression would be Yuibutsu Yobutsu. Yuibutsu is only Buddha. Yobutsu means together with Buddha. What is meant here? That only a Buddha can discuss the Buddha-dharma with a Buddha. You can't discuss the Buddha-dharma with an ordinary person. To me, this expression, only a Buddha and a Buddha, is a little bit, how do you say, a funny way of expressing that in the Buddha-dharma there's no second person. You cannot discuss the Buddha-dharma with another, because in the Buddha-dharma there's only this one reality. There's no other. I've been talking a lot about absolute truth and relative truth, especially in the talks on the precious mirror samadhi that I finished 2 weeks ago. And communication like this, like meeting each other on Zoom and trying to communicate something, that's only possible in the relative truth. But the communication of the absolute is only possible between Buddha and Buddha, or to be more precise, there is no communication in the absolute truth because there's nothing to communicate. You cannot communicate Zazen. You have to experience it for yourself. Only a Buddha and a Buddha together. And that means you alone with yourself. I alone with myself can discuss the Buddha-dharma. I cannot discuss it with you. When we discuss it later in words, well, we talk about it on the relative level. But to really penetrate it, only you alone with yourself can penetrate it. Anything? I think there was something else I wanted to say about this, but I forgot. Like Sawaki Roshi doesn't talk about it, Dogen usually doesn't talk so much about it. But in the old Mahayana sutras, as you probably know, there's the historic Buddha Shakyamuni, but there's lots of others. Most famous other Buddha in probably most of East Asia is Amitabha. He has his own Buddha land, which is supposed to be far in the west. Not on this planet, but almost in another universe. And there's other Buddhas. They all have their special realm. Whenever somebody attains enlightenment and becomes a Buddha, this person creates, so to speak, their own universe. And that has to do with the teaching that in one age, in one universe, there can be only one Buddha. There can never be two Buddhas in the same universe. So whenever somebody gets enlightened, they have their own private universe. And the teaching in the case of Amitabha and the other Buddhas is that people can enter the world of this Buddha if they fulfill certain conditions. In the case of Amitabha, it's enough to just chant his name 10 times. That's why he's very popular in East Asia. You just have to chant. In Japanese it would be Namo Amida Butsu. I think in Chinese it's something like Namo Amitofu. And if you chant that 10 times, this Buddha promises to invite you to his Buddha land. And this teaching, in my view, is, well, upaya, a helpful means, a skillful means to motivate people, to help them. But I think what is actually the case is each of us, if we're aware of it or not, we are already living in our own Buddha land. And this Buddha land is what I always call the here and now. Or using the metaphor of the movie and the screen, it's the screen. You are already there. And also on the screen, you're one of many actors. And the actors in the movie, they can communicate. The screen is totally alone with itself. So what is meant here with only a Buddha alone with the Buddha means only the screen alone with itself can realize the buddha-dharma. The actors in the movie might talk about it, but to really get in touch, you have to, well, take a break from the game, as I always say. Take a break from the game. Stop playing the actor in the movie and just be the screen. And then you, as a Buddha, totally alone with yourself, penetrate it. But you cannot communicate it to the actors in the movie. So that's how I read this quote here. Only a Buddha together with a Buddha means only you alone with yourself. When you sit, you shut your mouth, you sit down and face the wall. That's when you realize it. The next one is a short one. Our Zazen is like waking up from hibernation to a completely new world. Waking up after you slept for the whole winter and the world is completely new. Sometimes it feels like this during Zazen. You can probably also make an experience like that if you go to a session, for example, Antaishi, for 1 week, and the world looks completely different before the session and after the session. So it literally feels like you wake up after, for 3 months, 4 months, you've been sleeping whole winter, and then you wake up and it's a completely new world. The next quote is kind of similar. The next quote is, Zazen means returning once again to the womb. That's why Zazen isn't work. It's kind of similar, but in a way it's also the complete opposite. To wake up after hibernation and to return to the womb, at least to me, to return to the womb is a little bit like hibernating. You take a break after the autumn is over. you hibernate, and in a way hibernation is like returning to the womb. And before he said Zazen is like waking up after that. Here he says it means to return to the womb. That's why Zazen isn't work, or in my words it means to take a break from the game. You stop playing the game. But of course that doesn't mean a state where you're unconscious. It's not a sleepy state, but you see the world with fresh eyes, and you how do you say, discover the space that allows you to return to the game and play it in a more playful way. You're not attached to the idea I must win. You are able to have more fun and also hopefully help others to discover more fun in just playing the game. Do we have time? Maybe we have time for one more quote. Everyone is so busy with their calculations that they even forget what they were calculating in the first place. Zazen means stopping with all of this calculating. And here he's talking exactly about what we do when we're absorbed in the game. Who's winning? Who's losing? How many points did I collect? How many points did you have? And we completely forget that the game will end sooner or later, and nobody will care how many points we collected at the end of the game. Zazen means stopping with all of this calculating. Zazen means graduating from all human hallucinations. Zazen means practicing that which cannot be explained. And because it cannot be explained, even a Buddha cannot communicate it to an ordinary being. Only a Buddha alone with himself can practice Zazen. Zazen means putting into practice that which cannot be thought. And it would maybe be even more Zen-like if here he would have said Zazen means putting into practice that which cannot be put into practice. At least to my mind or to my ears, that would have sounded even cooler. But of course, it's also true that Zazen means to practice that which you cannot get your head around. You cannot grasp it with concepts. You cannot express it with words. But that at the end of the day means that also you cannot practice. You cannot do it. That's why we talk about Wu Wei, non-doing. Zazen means to put into practice that which cannot be done. You cannot do it. You have to allow it to happen. Basically, that's the art of letting go. Shinjin Datsulaku. Allow it to happen. You cannot do it. You cannot force it. Okay, so much from my side for today. As always, if you have questions, anything you would like to ask or share, you're welcome to do so.
Yeah. May I ask a small question?
Yes, please.
Yeah. If on the way of the Buddha we are alone, how and why the sangha is so important?
Good question. Good questions. I mean, there are these two sides. On the one hand, even if you sit with a good sangha, you practice together with a master and other students that you can respect. Nobody can replace your zazen on the zafu. So the sangha is important, but nobody can replace your zazen. So in theory, you could say that it doesn't really, the sangha is not important at all, because if I sit together with 10 other peoples or if I sit alone, it all depends on my zazen. The reason why the sangha is also important, And I talked about absolute truth and relative truth, and I didn't mean that the absolute is better than the relative. The relative truth means sangha is important, the teacher is important, exchange between practitioners, as we do here on Zoom, is important. And that is why it's easy to fall into this trap of, for example, thinking, I'm a Buddha already. Or sometimes people think, I have an enlightenment experience. I got it. I, and only I myself, am able to penetrate it. And a sangha can help you out of that. Can help you out of that if you fall into the trap of enlightenment, and a teacher and dharma friends can all you help and can also help you when you lose your motivation. If you practice for yourself, you can do it for a couple of years. Well, not so easy, for a couple of days, for a couple of weeks, maybe for a couple of months, but usually then you run out of gas. Sometimes you lose your motivation. And having a sangha, having a teacher, not only gets you back down from that mountain of enlightenment if for some reason you think you got enlightened, but more often than that, the teacher will help you to motivate you. It gives you courage. It helps you to get back on the cushion. So in theory, you don't need a sangha, but in practice, actually, the sangha is, it's called a treasure, like the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. These treasures, without these treasures, you probably wouldn't be it wouldn't be possible for you to continue on the way. Any other questions? Anything else you would like to share? Julian, please.
Just going back to being you yourself on your own. I think I was saying, when I was doing the long solo hike in northern Japan, that some days not seeing anyone all day, it's kind of like there was only me there and there wasn't even me there. It was the problem came trying to tell people in the evening what the day was like. And it was that fall from, from a kind of absolute to relative, isn't it? Or we were talking, but people would say, where have you come from and where you're going? And immediately it breaks. And I was just thinking about the womb and the hibernating. It's like the thing that you links those is the baby has just enough room, the hibernating bear has just enough space to do their thing without comparing themselves with other babies and hibernating bears, isn't it? They're not thinking all the other bears are better at hibernating than I am. um, but it just reminded me of that profound experience of that sort of absolute relative switch. So I just wanted to share that again. So thank you.
Is there anything else you would like to ask or share?
The last points, I wanted to share something about that. Interesting question, like why, if you're practicing on your own, why you need the sangha. So I was thinking about that, and in my experience, and thinking about this in terms of like self-actualization, and what I've read about people like Jung talking about this process where you're sort of on your path, facing the challenges in your life. And I feel like when I started to really do things that I felt and face all the challenges that I felt like I was supposed to do, and this path was really on my own, and I stopped really caring about, I think what you say is you stop comparing yourself to other people. I probably still do it, but I stopped doing that as much. And then I stopped, like long ago, I used to care if I had a lot of friends. I used to want to make friends. I used to care more about what people think. And then when I kind of let go of all that and then started facing challenges and doing the things I thought I was supposed to do, Zen included, then suddenly all these other people showed up like in my life, like a lot of these people. And it's like, now it's not, it doesn't feel like it's a dependent relationship on these other people. I feel like we're kind of walking along the same path. Maybe in Antaiji has a similar feeling too. Like, so in that regard, I feel like it does fit the uh, understanding of modern psychology on how self-actualization happens, and that's a personal experience. But then, and along that process, we'll end up having a lot of people will show up on the way. So for me, that's kind of how it makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I think
Just
that's.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Please, please.
Yeah, interesting you mentioned Carl Jung, Chris. Yeah, I was just like I was just traveling a little bit as well, and yeah, like I had like I guess like a period where I was, you know, really struggling with, you know, being absorbed in this certain form of practice, and yeah, kind of allowing practice to kind of just like take the natural form of day-to-day living, and letting that process just like just naturally occur, kind of thing. And kind of, yeah, just that process of you focus less on like, yeah, outside other people's like opinions, and you just start, yeah, doing the thing that you want to do. And then yeah, it's like you like attract the right kind of people, or it feels like you've found it can feel like you've found your place. Speaking from my personal experience, it can feel like you've found your place in like what's your role in this like great cog of the, I don't, maybe cog's not the right word, but great system of the universe. Like you found your, like the heart's purpose is to pump blood, so like the heart is doing its job, and then like the liver's role is doing its liver, and then it's like in a bigger scale, you, like this me here has found like my certain role or whatever. And like I'm still like obviously always trying to actualize that or understand it, but like, yeah, that process of self-actualization is interesting. Yeah, Carl Jung has some interesting ideas, so yeah, just thought I'd mention that. Thank you.
I think if you're not independent, it's also, well, impossible to be a true friend for somebody. So what Chris said makes perfect sense. If you need a friend because you can't stand on your own feet, you won't find friends because you can't be a true friend for somebody else. To be a true friend, you also must be able to just be alone with yourself. But I think Andre also raised his hands a couple of minutes ago, or was I mistaken?
Yes, I did. I did.
Ah, you did.
But
Okay.
it might be a bit confused. Like I really love this quote, the first one. The Dharma can only be discussed with between a Buddha and a Buddha, was it? Yeah. This really touched me. But there's in Mahayana the idea that there are countless Buddhas.
Yes.
Because like it starts with this you are already Buddha when you sit, like what Dogen Zenji teaches. Like when you sit, you are Buddha.
Yes.
So what are we doing here? We discuss the Dharma, but it's not possible if we are the ordinary person,
Yes.
because then it's just like Twitter, like what the birds do. But sometimes someone else says touches me, even if it's Kodo Sawaki and you read it. Somehow it touches me, but I cannot explain. I just can say, I like this quote. Somehow it touches me. Something resonates in me. So maybe this is the little small moment when the little Buddha, which is in all of us, is there or shows up, like when we are together and something in the communication touches each other, and we are just not trying to, like, I don't know. Yeah, it's what I said. It's confused. It's just confused thinking about this stuff, like this idea that there is this state, this enlightened state, or this absolute state where there is only one. It sounds to me strange, because like there are countless Buddhas they teach, isn't it?
Yes, but as I explained, each of these Buddhas is in their own Buddha land. They don't communicate with each other. So when we discuss about the buddha-dharma, we won't find it in this discussion on Zoom, and you will also not find the buddha-dharma in this book by Kodo Sawaki. That doesn't mean that we must not talk. Talk can help to get you out of misconceptions. Sometimes when something resonates with you, it helps you to get motivated. So that connects to the question, why do we need the sangha? To bring us back on the track. But even while studying books like this will not get you face to face with the buddha-dharma. That's why words like this can be sometimes, how do you say, Sawaki Roshi himself said, all the sutras are just like, how do you say, footnotes to Zazen. Sometimes a footnote helps to understand what you're doing when you're doing Zazen, but the footnote cannot replace the practice. And there's many countless Buddhas, means there's countless people that do Zazen, but none of these other people can replace your Zazen. And when I later look, for example, I upload this stuff to YouTube, and YouTube shows me how many people looked at this stuff and which sections they look at. And understandably, what is most popular is the second 30 minutes when I start to talk. Nobody wants to see the first 30 minutes where people sit silently. But actually that's those 30 minutes where you and only you yourself can penetrate the Buddha-dharma. Of course, you don't have to look at us sitting on YouTube, but actually these first 30 minutes is what is important. And the second 30 minutes is just a footnote, a little bit exchange about what we're doing there, maybe help us motivate to keep on track, maybe to clear up some misunderstandings. But even the words of Sawaki can never replace your practice. So when you sit on the cushion, that's when a Buddha, together with a Buddha, is penetrating the truth. I don't think that Sawaki is talking here about Buddha A and Buddha B having some secret conversation. I think it's you together with yourself. Okay, it's already 9 o'clock here in Japan. So if there are no more questions, no other things you would like to share or ask, I would like to thank you. And we can meet here again next week. Did we have a topic for next week?
Bye. Thank you very much.
Pardon?
Thank you very much. Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. No problem. So next week, I haven't decided on a new topic yet. I will think about it, but maybe next week we will do this again, because I finished the Precious Mirror Samadhi text. And maybe if I have an idea, I think there were some suggestions, but to be honest, I already forgot your suggestions for new texts. When I have a new idea, I will maybe parallel do a different text. Anyway, thank you for joining. Thank you to Xuan-san for hosting us here, and I wish you a good week, hoping to see you again next Monday.
Thank you, Muho.
Thank you.
Thank you.